Hey folks, how you doing? This is CJ from StriperKingGear.com. As you know, we anglers face many rules and regulations on a yearly basis. 2014 is proven not to be any different. There's no better person to explain these rules and regulations to us than Captain Bill Baker himself. So please enjoy this week's episode of Fish Talk, featuring Captain Bill Baker, live from his shop. Hey folks, how you doing? It's CJ from StriperKingGear.com.
And Bill Jr. at Bill's Sports Shop. We have a really special guest today.
Oh, I'm not
legend.
special. I'm Captain Bill. How you doing, CJ?
Captain Bill Baker, man.
I happen to be his father. I raised him. I tried hard.
Yeah, you tried hard. Today we want to talk about the new rules and regulations of 2014 season. The new books are in, and actually, there's no better person to explain that than you, my man. All the books are on.
Yeah, the books are in, and if you look on the very last page, I think it's the last page, right back here is the advertisement that we put in the book for Bill's Sports Shop.
Hey!
It's not the last page. It's next to the last page. There it is. See? It's upside down.
That's right, they're used to that.
The book is printed in January, CJ, and the problem with that is that they do a lot of advertising now in the book, which they didn't used to do, and that's why we have an ad in it, and it fits that a tackle shop would be in the book. But it comes out in January, and all of the rules and regulations are usually passed in May or June, because there has to be 3 public hearings for every rule change that there is with Fish and Wildlife, and after the 3 public meetings it has to go to the governor to sign it into law. So therefore everything in here is last year's regulations.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're talking a lot of really good things though. We've had a lot of years of very strict regulations on flounder, and now they're starting to loosen them up, because for a couple of years there, Delaware just didn't catch any flounder. It was like 18 and a half inches, and nobody was able to get a keeper. So now they're talking about bringing it 4 a day per angler at 16 inches. There's a ton of 16 and a half and 17 inch flounders out there, CJ. So
Some of them are thicker than the 17 and 18 inch flounder, too.
well, yeah, they're the better fish. So if they go with that, which it appears that they are going to go with that, with a full season open, 12 months out of the year, which I'm always against a closure.
Right.
The thing that everybody loves to fish for out there, though, is sea bass.
Yeah.
And the sea bass have been a little bit hard to come by.
Talking about closures.
Well, you know, the problem is that they have been hard to come by, and when a fish gets hard to come by, there's a lot of reasons for it. And everybody says, well, what about the trout? Or not the trout, but the wheat fish.
Right.
And the wheat fish just all but disappeared, right, Bill?
Yep.
The last couple of years they've been making a comeback.
But then you got the
Not
people
like
saying,
it was 15, 20 years ago, but
you got the people complaining about that there's not enough stripers. What do you think is eating these sea trout? What do you think, you know, and then Salem nuclear plant I think has a lot to do with it.
Well, a tremendous amount. I was involved with the CAC, with the Center for the Inland Bays situation there with the power plant here in the Indian River. And they literally just about closed that plant up as far as using the water goes to cool their generators.
The intakes,
Now it's all air cooled, and there's a lot more fish. In fact, there's a whole survey that goes on. Kernahan is in charge of that with the Center for the Inland Bays. They're catching. They've got one on their website right now. They want somebody to identify. They don't even know what it is.
Really?
Yeah, they're getting all these different fish out of Rehoboth Bay, and it's just phenomenal the amount of fish that are starting to show up since the power plant changed its methods of operation. And you know, the Salem plant, you're absolutely right. There's millions of fish being killed every day up there at that nuclear plant. So they have to go to a air cooling too.
Yeah, it takes us slaughter.
But back to the sea bass, that's not in the inland bay. So there's a few sea bass, but they're not the ones that we catch. You got to get 8 to 10 miles offshore to catch any amount of or any size of sea bass. Of course, in the wintertime they go out there for the deep drop. Well, that's all done. You know,
it's done.
The head boats, it's all closed.
They closed it on the first of the year. They closed sea bass, and that's usually what your long-term.
That's hog, you know, and I heard Todd slow
Oh yeah, and the golden tile, the tile fish, but
well, they'll go for that.
They'll go for that, but if there's no sea bass, the trips are more infrequent.
They're talking about not opening the sea bass season up until May 19th.
Ooh.
You know, that's really bad, and it'll be open through the summer up until September 18th. and then closed for a month, which it always was in
Always
September.
was,
I didn't
right,
really
right.
understand why they did that, but
Which makes it tough on the guys wanting to go out because you got Todd closed in
Yeah.
September too.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And the Striper aren't here yet.
well, and then from October 18th to December 31st, it's opened back up again. But they're
Right.
talking 15 fish.
It's only 15.
That's fine. I don't mind only
Yeah.
15. I actually, literally, I remember the days that we went out there when there were no regulations on sea bass, and we kept hundreds of them, filled
Yeah.
barrels up with sea
Yeah.
bass, and it was just incredible. Every time you dropped the bait down, you'd have 2 and 3 on your
Yeah.
line. You know, that isn't anymore. So there might be a reason for them to cut it back. You know, when you start seeing the biomass diminishing like that.
What do you think of the 12.5-inch size?
Well, you know, 15 to 12 and a half inches is fine, and all of the spawning is closed, so that's good too, and they probably will recover for this. So I'm not totally against it. You know, we want to see regulations that are beneficial for the future and for the biomass of all the fish,
Right.
not just for this year. And here I am at tackle shop, and yeah, everybody says tackle shops want everything open and they want
Right.
to catch fish all the time.
Which we
No.
do, yes, but,
Well, no,
but
yeah, we do, but we don't.
Right.
We want to make sure that there's a good balance between what is fun to do and what's going to be good and fun for 20 years from now, 30 years from now for our grandchildren too.
Well, that's why you're on all those committees.
Yeah, that's why I'm
I
all
think,
those
I
committees.
can't wait
Watch
for
out all.
the oyster harvest to start kicking in. That's gonna really help.
That's going to be very
That's
soon
gonna be
now.
huge.
That's a law that's passed, and DENREC is working on all the regulations with that, and you're going to see. In fact, we just went to a restaurant and got oysters, and I said, "Where'd these oysters come from?" They said, "Chincoteague." And I said, "You're soon going to have Rehoboth Bay oysters in your restaurant. That's going to be as fresh as you can get."
You're not kidding there. That's gonna be great. It's gonna clean
Yeah.
the water up, bring
Yeah.
all kinds of fish
Well, it's
in.
going to clear the bays up tremendously, and it's going to add to the economy in the area. It's going
Yeah,
to
right.
it's going to bring jobs to the area, and it's going to help the local restaurants. It's a win-win-win-win situation all the way around.
Right.
And it's probably going to kick in within the next year. You're going to see them out there. It takes about 18 months to go from spat to
That's what I was
a
gonna ask.
saleable,
Yeah,
saleable
about 18
oyster.
months, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work. It's a lot of time in there, but once they're out there, they
Well,
for a lot of
well,
work.
Have they
then
started
it's
with-
cycling.
Yeah.
You know, then it's just a
Nonstop,
constant, steady
right.
thing.
have
Right.
they started with any in the water yet?
Not yet,
That's
no.
going to be this spring, or?
I'm hoping it's this spring. I don't know. There's a couple of things we're working on. That's one, and the other is the dredging of Massey's. You folks out there with boats that are stuck in Rehoboth Bay, you got to use Baker's Channel right now to get out. But if you go to Massey's Landing and you launch your boat, you're going to have if it's low tide, you're going to have a really hard time getting